In the wide galaxy full of stars and wonders, there lived a princess who was born into silence and darkness. Her name was Princess Alaya, and she belonged to the powerful Tiralai Empire. Her people were known for their shining eyes and beauty, but Alaya was different. She was blind from birth, in a royal palace filled with light and color. She could not see any of it. Alaya grew up with soft music, gentle voices, and careful steps. Her father, Emperor Valcor, loved her deeply, but even he could not protect her from the whispers in the halls. She cannot lead. No one will marry her. She is broken. These cruel words were hidden behind fake smiles, but Alaya heard them all. She did not cry. Instead, she learned to listen carefully. She learned the rhythm of every voice, the touch of every person's emotions. Though she could not see the stars, she dreamed of them every night. As Alaya came of age, the galaxy watched. Royal families from across the stars received the invitation to unite with the Tiralai Empire through marriage. Many had once waited eagerly for this chance, but when they learned that the bride-to-be was blind, they found excuses. Some said their customs would not allow it. Others sent kind words but clear rejections. Alaya received no proposals, no promises, only silence. Her father was heartbroken. He offered great wealth and strong alliances. Still, no one stepped forward. Alaya sat alone in her chamber, hands folded in her lap, pretending she was not waiting. But in her heart, she asked a silent question. Am I really so unworthy? She never wanted pity. She wanted someone to walk beside her not out of duty, but from choice. A partner who would not feel sorry for her blindness, but who would speak to her like she was whole.
How days passed.
Then weeks. Hope began to fade. One morning, everything changed. A messenger entered the palace with a strange message. It came not from a powerful empire, but from a place many saw as wild and dangerous earth. The message was short, simple, and surprising. It came from a man named Captain Daniel Reyes, an Earth diplomat. It said, "If she is willing, I would be honored to meet the princess. Not for power, not for politics, but to know her heart." The entire court fell silent. A human, a death worlder. The galaxy laughed at the idea, but Alaya did not. She held the message in her hands and read it again and again. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever said they wanted to know her not as a royal tool, but as a person. She did not know this human. She did not know what Earth was truly like. But in her heart, she felt something soft and warm, something she had not felt in a long time. Hope, she asked to meet him, not as a princess to a suitor, but as one soul to another. The meeting was planned in the Garden of Stars, a peaceful station between worlds. As the stars spun quietly, outside the windows, Princess Alaya waited. She did not know what the human would say. She did not know what he would think of her, but for the first time, she was not afraid, because someone, somewhere, had looked past her blindness and had seen her, and that, for Alaya, was the beginning of everything. Captain Daniel Reyes stood inside the peaceful space station known as the Garden of Stars. It floated quietly between worlds, filled with strange, glowing flowers and soft music from many alien cultures. But Daniel wasn't looking at the plants. He was waiting for someone very important, the blind princess no one else wanted to meet. He had read about Princess Alaya weeks ago. He saw how other species had refused to marry her just because she was blind. That didn't sit right with him. On Earth, people with blindness were respected. Some were artists, some were scientists, and many lived full lives. Daniel believed the same should be true in any part of the galaxy. So he sent the message. He didn't expect a reply. But now, here he was, nervous, heart racing as the doors opened and soft footsteps echoed. Princess Alaya entered with her head held high. She wore a deep silver robe, and her white eyes glowed softly in the light. Though she could not see him, she walked calmly, holding her servant's arm gently for direction. Her presence was quiet, yet powerful. Daniel was surprised she didn't look weak or broken. She looked like someone who had carried years of pain and still stood tall. "Captain Reyes," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but there was a small tremble in it. "Thank you for coming." Daniel stepped forward and bowed slightly. "It's an honor, Princess Elia." She smiled just a little. "Most people don't say that." Paused then. Said, "Most people don't know how to see." Elia tilted her head, as if surprised. "That's a strange thing to say to someone who is blind." "I wasn't talking about eyes," Daniel replied gently. "I meant the heart." For a moment, she said nothing. Then she reached out her hand. Slowly, Daniel took it. Her fingers were cool and careful, like someone who had learned to be cautious with every touch. They walked together through the garden. Daniel described the flowers to her, the ones that opened when you hummed, the ones that glowed brighter when touched. Elia listened closely, laughing softly at his simple words. It had been a long time since anyone made her laugh without trying to impress her. "You speak to me like I'm normal," she said quietly. "You are," he replied, "but I'm not what the galaxy expects." "Good," Daniel said with a smile. "The galaxy needs better expectations." Elia stopped walking. She turned her face slightly toward him, as if trying to see through the darkness. "Why did you agree to meet me?" He looked at her with honest eyes. "Because I read your words. I saw the way you spoke about peace, about kindness, care. More about people than power. That's rare. I didn't come to save you, Princess. I came because I think you matter." Those words touched something deep inside her. For years, people had treated her like a problem, a burden, or a duty. But Daniel saw her as a person. She didn't say much after that. But when they returned to the meeting room, she turned to her advisor and said clearly, "Tell my father. I accept the proposal." Daniel looked at her in surprise. "Just like that?" Elia nodded. "You didn't ask for gold or glory? You asked for me. And I've waited my whole life for that." The stars outside the station sparkled softly, as if they, too, were listening. And so, a human and a blind princess made a promise, not just for themselves, but for a galaxy that had forgotten how to see with the heart. The day of the official meeting came quickly. It was not yet the wedding, but it was something almost as important, their first true time together. Away from formal greetings and curious eyes, Princess Elia and Captain Daniel Reyes met once, again in the Garden of Stars. The same peaceful station where light floated like dust and silence spoke louder than words. This time, Elia walked without her guide. She used a small staff, touching the ground softly as she moved. Her face was calm, but her heart beat faster than usual. She had met many people in her life, royals, scholars, but something about Daniel felt different. It was not just his voice or kindness, it was the way he listened. He did not speak to fill silence. He spoke when it mattered. Daniel stood waiting near the center garden, where two glowing trees leaned toward each other. When he saw her approach, he smiled gently and moved to her side. "You remembered the way," he said. "I listened," Elia replied. "The trees sing when the wind moves." "I followed their song." He chuckled softly. "Only you would hear a tree's song." They sat down on a soft stone bench under the glowing branches. The silence between them was gentle, not heavy. After a while, Daniel took something from his coat pocket. It was a small music box made of wood from earth. He placed it in her hands. "What is this?" she asked, her fingers tracing the edges. "Something from my mother," Daniel said. "She gave it to me when I left Earth. I want you to have it." Elia opened the lid slowly. Quiet melody began to play, soft, warm, and full of emotion. She closed her eyes and smiled. "It's beautiful." She said, "Music can tell truth better than words." I thought, maybe this could speak for me. Elia didn't know what to say. No one had ever given her a gift that wasn't part of a duty or deal. This was different. It felt personal. "Real. Thank you," she whispered, holding the box close. Daniel looked at her, watching the way she smiled even though she could not see. "You're not what I expected." She turned toward his voice. "And what did you expect?" He hesitated. "Someone afraid. Someone angry at the world." She nodded slowly. "I was. For a long time. But then I realized anger only made my world darker. I wanted to be more than what others thought of me. And you are, Daniel said softly. Much more. Their words settled between them like warm air. Laia turned her face toward the stars outside the glass walls. Do you think this will work? She asked quietly. You and me, human and a blind alien princess? Daniel reached out, gently placing his hand over hers. If we build it on trust and honesty, then yes, I do. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she squeezed his hand. Back. I want to see you, she said. You are. Oh. She smiled. I want to see you the way you see me. With faith. Daniel leaned closer and whispered, Then let's walk this path together, step by step. The Garden of Stars stood still as the music box continued to play. Two souls, one from Earth, one from a faraway empire, sat under glowing trees and shared something rare in the galaxy. Not duty, not power, but connection. And in that quiet space between stars, something began to grow, something stronger than sight and deeper than titles, something called love. The wedding of Princess Elia and Captain Daniel Reyes. It's not just a ceremony, it was a moment the whole galaxy watched with surprise and curiosity. No one expected it to actually happen. Some thought Daniel would change his mind. Others believed the Tyrlee Empire would cancel it to avoid shame. But nothing stopped it. Love had already taken root. Now it was ready to bloom. The Garden of Stars was chosen for the wedding, a place between worlds, where no empire ruled and peace surrounded every corner. Alien lights hung from the ceiling like stars frozen. In place, soft music played from floating instruments, creating a quiet magic in the air. Elia stood in her royal chamber, dressed in silver threads that moved like starlight. Her long hair was braided with small glowing gems. She couldn't see herself in a mirror, but she felt ready. Her hands were steady, her heart calm. I can't see the path ahead, she whispered to her maid. But you feel it, the maid replied with a smile. Sometimes feeling is stronger than seeing. At the other end of the station, Daniel prepared too. His Earth-made suit was simple, dark blue, with a small silver pin shaped like a star. He looked nervous but proud. As he adjusted his collar, an Earth officer beside him said, You're making history today. Daniel smiled. I'm not trying to make history. I'm just marrying someone who matters to me. When the music changed, guests from across the galaxy stood. Some were curious nobles, some political leaders. Many still believed this was a mistake. But when Elia entered the hall, they all went silent. She walked slowly, holding her father's arm. Though blind, she moved with grace. Each step was steady, like she was walking towards something certain. She could feel the crowd, feel the silence. She didn't care if they judged her. Today was not for them. Daniel watched her approach, his eyes soft with emotion. To him, she looked like the center of the universe. When they finally stood together, the priest of stars began the ceremony. He spoke of unity, trust, and the power of choosing love over fear. Then it was time for vows. Daniel took her hands gently. Elia, he said, you were never broken. You were always brighter than the stars. I promise to stand beside you, to be your eyes when needed, and your strength when the world feels cold. Elia smiled and spoke next. Daniel, you saw me when no one else did. You did not fear my darkness. You walked into it with light. I promise to walk with you, not as someone needing help, but as someone who gives it back. Their words made even the coldest hearts pause. When the ceremony ended, the priest said the final words from this moment forward. Let all worlds know they are not two people from different places, but one bond stronger than distance. Daniel leaned in and kissed her forehead gently. The crowd, unsure of what to do, began to clap, then louder. Some guests even wiped away quiet tears. The galaxy had watched expecting shame, but what they saw was something.
Powerful and rare hope is.
The celebration began. Elia whispered to Daniel, Did we really do it? He smiled and squeezed her hand. Yes, and the stars witnessed every second. That night, while music played and laughter echoed, two souls from far worlds danced under alien lights. They didn't care about titles or opinions. They only cared about the path they had chosen together. And in that moment, Princess Alaya no longer felt like the blind girl no one wanted. She felt like the queen of the stars. The wedding was over, but real life had only just begun. After the celebrations, Princess Alaya and Captain Daniel returned to the royal city of the Tiroli Empire. High towers touched the sky, and glowing bridges floated between them.
The air
Was full of light and sound, but Alaya walked calmly, holding Daniel's arm. She could not see the city, but she felt its weight. She knew that many eyes were watching her, not waiting, judging. Not everyone believed in their love.
Ow.
Some nobles whispered that the marriage was just for show. Others said Daniel, a human, could never understand royal life. But Daniel didn't care what they said. He focused on Alaya. He supported her with quiet strength and kindness, never stepping ahead of her, always beside her. Alaya was now part of the ruling council. She had to attend meetings, sign laws, and make important decisions. Many council members were unsure. She can't see the documents, they said. But Alaya had prepared for this all her life. She had trained her memory. She had learned to listen to voices, tones, and meanings hidden between words. At her first council meeting, an argument broke out between two outer world governors. They accused each other of cheating on trade deals. The room became loud and messy. Everyone spoke at once. But Alaya stayed quiet, her face calm. She turned to Daniel and asked softly, "Are they angry, or are they pretending?" Daniel listened and said, "One is angry. The other is hiding something." Alaya stood and raised her voice, not loud, but clear. Silence. The room froze. She walked slowly to the center and said, "If you cannot speak with respect, then this council will not hear you. You are leaders, not children." Everyone stared. The blind princess had taken control without shouting. She solved the dispute by asking the right questions. Within minutes, both governors agreed to a new deal. No tricks, no threats. After the meeting, one old counselor came to Daniel and said, "She is stronger than we thought." Daniel replied, with a smile, "You only had to see her." "I already did." That night, Alaya sat on the palace balcony with Daniel beside her. The stars above shined bright, though she could not see them. She touched Daniel's hand and said, "Do you think they will ever truly accept me?" Daniel looked at her with deep care. "They will, because you're not forcing them. You're showing them." Alaya thought for a moment. "Sometimes I feel like I'm walking through a storm. Then I'll walk with you," he said, "even through thunder and fire." She leaned her head on his shoulder. In her heart, she still carried fears. But she also carried something stronger, his faith in her. In the days that followed, Alaya began creating new programs. She ordered schools for children with disabilities across the empire. She called them star classes, places where no child would feel left behind. Many leaders questioned this idea, but some mothers from distant worlds sent messages of thanks. One wrote, "Because of your light, my child no longer feels invisible." Alaya cried when she read that. Not because of sadness, but because of meaning. Her pain had become someone else's hope. And Daniel. He stayed close, always calm, always kind. He was not just her husband. He was her partner, her teammate, her friend. Together, they were not just changing the future of the Tiroli Empire. They were changing hearts. Princess Alaya had become a symbol of quiet strength. With Daniel by her side, she brought change to the Tiroli Empire. People began to see her not as a blind royal, but as a true leader. She listened when others shouted. She healed when others blamed. And slowly, the hearts of many began to shift. But not everyone wanted change. In the deep halls of the royal palace, some old nobles still held their pride tightly. They watched Alaya with cold eyes. They did not like a human sharing royal power, and they could not accept that a blind woman was shaping the empire's future. In whispers and secret rooms, they began to plot. One evening, Daniel received a message from a trusted Earth contact. "Be careful," the message warned. "There are people near you who wear smiles but hold knives." Daniel didn't show the message to Alaya right away. He didn't want to worry her. But he became more alert. He watched the way some officials stared too long or asked strange questions. Something was wrong. The trouble came during a grand peace meeting. Leaders from 10 systems had gathered. It was Elia's idea to create a new peace council where different species could share knowledge and support each other. She stood proudly in the hall, ready to speak. But just before she could begin, a councilman stood up and shouted, "This marriage is a lie. This human came here for power, not love." The hall fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Elia, and Daniel, the councilman, continued, "He is using the princess to take control. How can we trust a species from a death world? He's tricking us." Elia's hands trembled. She had feared this moment, being called a fool, being treated like she couldn't choose her own heart. But before she could speak, Daniel stepped forward. "No," he said firmly. "I came here not for power, but because I saw something no one else did. I saw her." He looked at the crowd, his voice steady. "You may fear me because I am human. You may look at Earth and see war. But if you looked closer, you'd also see hope. You'd see people who build, who heal, who protect. I did not take anything. I was given trust. I was given love." He turned to Elia, "And I gave my life in return." Then Elia stepped forward. She did not raise her voice, but her words were like fire. "You say I was tricked. Then you think I am weak. But I am not. I chose him, and I will not let fear decide my future." There was silence. Then someone began to clap. Slowly, more hands joined. Sound grew. Even some nobles who had doubted her before stood and showed respect. The angry councilman was taken away quietly. It was later discovered that he had been working with secret enemies who wanted the peace plan to fail. His lies had been part of a bigger plan to break the new unity, but they had failed. That night, Elia sat with Daniel on the palace balcony again. The wind was soft and the stars were quiet. "I was afraid," she said honestly. "So was I," Daniel replied. "But fear didn't win." She nodded. "No. Love did." In the dark sky above, 2 moons crossed paths and lit up the clouds. Elia could not see them, but she felt their light through Daniel's voice. "You're glowing," he whispered. And in that moment, Elia smiled, because she knew whatever storms came, they would face them together, not as a blind princess and a human outsider, but as one. Princess Elia and Captain Daniel Reyes stood together on the balcony of the High Council Hall, looking out at the city lights of the Tiroli Empire. Years had passed since their wedding, and change had rooted deep in every world they touched. The streets below were quieter now, filled with traders instead of soldiers, and children played freely under glowing arches. Elia felt the breeze on her face and rested her hand on Daniel's arm. She could not see the lights, but she felt their warmth through his steady presence. They traveled often to distant planets now. On the desert moon of Sarin, Elia opened a new school for children born without sight. She walked the sandy paths, with her cane naming each building after a star. Daniel watched her speak to the gathered families, proud that she used her own story to bring hope. When she placed the first brick in the classroom wall, she spoke softly, "May every child here learn to shine." The crowd cheered and Elia's heart swelled. Back in the royal capital, Elia led the Grand Peace Council. Representatives from 10 systems met under her guidance, sharing ideas to help planets rebuild after old wars. She listened to each voice, then guided them toward solutions. Daniel sat beside her as co-chair, translating Earth ideas into council language. When a dispute arose, Elia calmed tempers with gentle words, reminding everyone of their shared dream. She had once been the one they doubted most, but now she was their chosen leader. One evening, they hosted a grand celebration in the floating plaza. Lanterns glowed like fireflies, and music drifted through the air. Aliens of every shape and color gathered to honor Elia and Daniel for their work. Endely envoy from the Rizuri Republic stepped forward. With trembling hands, he gave Elia a folded ribbon of light and honor that no blind ruler had ever received. Elia felt tears of joy and held the gift close, knowing it symbolized true acceptance. At the heart of the Imperial Gardens, Daniel unveiled a new monument. It was a simple statue of two figures walking hand in hand, one with a staff, the other with a guiding hand. Elia reached out to touch the cool stone, feeling every carved detail. "We did this together," Daniel whispered. Elia nodded, feeling the weight of history in her fingers. Children gathered around, and one small boy asked, "Who are they?" A teacher knelt and said, "They are proof that love can change a galaxy." In quiet moments, Elia and Daniel spoke of the future. They planned a new academy where scholars of all species could study together. Elia wanted to teach empathy, not just politics. Daniel wanted to share Earth's stories of courage and hope. They dreamed of a galaxy where no one would feel alone. No matter what challenges they faced, together, they sketched blueprints on a table, their voices soft but determined. As the moons rose over the horizon, Elia rested her head on Daniel's shoulder. She felt his breath, steady and warm. "You also work. Look how far we've come," she said. Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "All because you taught us to see with our hearts." Elia closed her eyes and smiled, knowing his words were true. No. The blind princess and the human captain became legends across the stars. Their story whispered through every world. She could not see the light, but she became the brightest star of all.